Welcome to the Basement Book Drop. I'm Rutherford Rankin, and today's topic is mental health. So the reason that I wanted to talk about mental health today is that I just finished a very interesting book called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life by a doctor named Daniel Amen. So I also want to talk to you about 4 essential oils that I have found helpful. I call them the ABBCs. These essential oils are ones that sort of relate to the topic that we're talking about today. They relate to mental health, the mental disorders that I'm talking about that came up in this book. And then I want to talk to you about, other things outside of essential oils that you can do to improve your mental health or help keep you grounded. So that's what we're talking about today. Let's get started with the book review. Okay, so the book that I just finished reading is called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. I went into it with maybe a little bit different impression of what the book was going to be about. I thought it was going to be a little bit more about strategies that you could use for improving your mental health, thinking differently, that sort of thing. When I started reading it, it turned out that it was more of, a case study by the author on some techniques that he uses in his clinics to help people with mental health problems. So I went ahead and kept reading and found that the information in the book was not necessarily as helpful as far as strategies, but it was very helpful in understanding how the brain works with relation to mental health. So what this doctor does is he makes a really good point in the beginning of the book that psychiatrists are the only doctors who are expected to treat an organ of the body without being able to see that organ or know what's going on inside that organ. So, psychiatrists know a lot about how the brain works, but not necessarily the activity that's going on in the brain. So what this doctor does, he actually has some clinics in different places around the United States. He started doing SPECT scans, which are single photon emission computed tomography. It's basically like a CT scan, but it monitors the activity that's going on in the brain. So he wanted to see whether people with different mental health states might have different activity going on in different parts of the brain. So his research was really interesting because he actually shares pictures of these brain scans that he's done on these people, and then he gives you a sort of case history of that patient. He takes this information and then he crafts the treatment plan based on what part of the brain is being affected and what they can do as a psychiatrist to change that activity. He has sort of like a 4-part treatment plan that he gives to every patient, and it's the BPSSP. So it's biological, what they need to do biologically to change the biology of their brain to make it work better or more like a healthy brain. What can they do to help their psychological health? And that may be prescriptions. The biological, a lot of times is like supplements or a healthier diet. The psychological may be like psychological medications, although he tends to go for the less invasive treatment first. So he likes to have people try supplements before they move on to a stronger, like an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety medication. He's really trying to make this holistic plan that might make positive long-term change for the person. So we have the biological, the psychological. The S is for social. So their social interactions with other people. If they're experiencing depression, are they isolated from people? They live alone, they don't go out much. Is that affecting them? And what can they do to change that? And then the final one is SP, which stands for spiritual. The spiritual is talking about the person's meaning and purpose in life. So for some patients, that was religion. For other people, that was simply about finding out what their purpose and meaning in life is. It brings these 4 treatment pieces together rather than just prescribing the person a medication or just trying to do therapy. It's bringing different facets to improve their brain activity wherever it needs to be improved. It's definitely something that if you like sciencey medical type stuff and you can understand some of the science terms, it gives you a very interesting perspective on mental health. He doesn't necessarily give you a treatment plan for your mental health, but he does provide some guidance on different strategies that have worked for different scenarios of patients. Don't take it as like a medical advice book. Take it more as a case study on the patients that he has studied and helped. I would be interested to know, based on the successful clients that are in his book, what percentage of clients didn't find success with him, and he did not really go into that. And so that's something I would have liked to have seen. I mean, you can talk about all of these successful cases all day long, but I would really like to know what the success rate is among everybody that he's treated. That's my tip for the book, I guess, my constructive criticism. But overall, it was a very interesting book and not at all what I expected. So check it out if that's something that interests you. I always recommend, if you have some kind of medical issue or a mental health issue, do the research and understand what's going on. So speaking of mental health, I want to talk to you a little bit about essential oils now. I like sharing with other people the things about essential oils that have helped me. Just like medications don't always work the same for every patient, essential oils may not work the same for you. If you're doing aromatherapy, it may be that you don't like the smell of that essential oil. I happen to love the smell of patchouli. One of my best friends that introduced me to essential oils, she absolutely hates patchouli. I don't know if she hates patchouli, but she really doesn't like patchouli. That's a preference thing. Essential oils may not have the same effect on you that they have on me. Give it a try. Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. What I wanted to talk about today with relation to essential oils is 4 oils that I use that help sort of keep me grounded when I'm very anxious. These oils are very helpful just to kind of ground me, release some of the stress, and keep me focused. So typically I use a diffuser during the day when I'm working. Keeps me a little calmer than I would otherwise be in my environment. So I typically do diffusing. The other ways that you could use essential oils, you can take them internally depending on what the oil is. Not all oils can be taken internally, so make sure you do your research and understand which ones are safe to use internally. Also, don't use internal oils or topical oils or in a diffuser of an oil that you know you are allergic to. Don't use that oil. So the oils that I chose to talk about today, like I said earlier, I call them the ABBCs of oils. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Align. So Align comes in a smaller bottle like that. This is part of doTERRA's, I think it's like a yoga kit. Align is a centering blend. So it's supposed to help you center your thoughts, focus. Align actually has fractionated coconut oil, bergamot fruit oil, coriander, marjoram, peppermint, geranium, basil, rose, and jasmine. So those are the oils that are in this. Now, Align is not meant to be consumed internally. Just want to make that clear. One thing, if you do use doTERRA oils, if the oil is meant to be consumed internally, it will usually have a nutrition label on the bottle. So just a little tip there. So Align is really meant to be used topically. So I'll put a drop on each wrist and then I kind of rub them together. As far as the smell, it's a very herbaceous, and you can smell a little bit of the peppermint, but it's definitely got an herbaceous and a tiny bit of a floral scent. I do really like Align for helping me center when I need to center. The next one that I'm going to talk about is Balance. Balance is a grounding blend. So one thing that I do when I'm working, if I know it's going to be a potentially stressful day, if I have a lot of client calls, or I just know I'm working on something that is going to kind of stress me out, I will use Balance in my diffuser because it does help me kind of keep grounded. doTERRA does sell a deodorant that is Balance scented. I usually do use that deodorant. The last time I did my doTERRA order, it was out of stock, so I wasn't able to get that deodorant. So Balance has, again, coconut oil. It has spruce, hoe leaf, frankincense, blue tansy, blue chamomile, and osmanthus. So those are the oils that are in Balance. Balance is another one that is not to be consumed. As far as the scent, Balance is a little like Align in that it is a very herbal kind of blend, but it has this almost like an after smell that's like a clean kind of scent that reminds me a little bit of like a men's cologne, but a very subtle one. You can use Balance topically, so you can put it on your wrists and rub it together. You could put it on your temples or the back of your neck. Okay, so it's ABBC. I know I used 2 B letters, but that's okay because I thought it was important to talk about the other one because it is my very favorite doTERRA blend. So this blend is called Breathe. It's safe to use topically. It's safe to diffuse. Breathe is a respiratory blend. It's supposed to help open your airways, open your both upper and lower. So that is the purpose behind Breathe. As far as the scent, it's got a lot of eucalyptus. I would compare it a little bit, this is going to sound strange, but I would compare it a little bit to Vicks Vapor Rub that you use when you like have a cold, which makes sense because that opens your airways and this is meant to open your airways as well. So the way that I use Breathe, and this is a little bit odd because it's not really meant to have relaxing properties, but the way that I use Breathe is I use it at night. When I go to bed, I have some unscented lotion. I put a drop of that and I put a drop of Breathe, rub it together, it moisturizes my hands overnight, and then I also get the scent of the Breathe, and it really does help me sleep a lot better. A lot of people use lavender at night, or they might use Balance. I use Breathe, and I sleep really well when I use Breathe. There is a big difference for me when I don't use this in my sleep. So it has laurel, eucalyptus, peppermint, melaleuca, which is tea tree, lemon, cardamom, ravensara, and ravensara. So those are the oils that are in there. Okay, so the last oil that I wanted to talk about is Copaiba. So Copaiba is safe to take internally. It does have the nutrition label, so that's how you know that it is okay to ingest. It's compared a lot to CBD oil, kind of as an alternative to CBD oil. A lot of people are still opposed to CBD oil just because of the plant that it comes from. So Copaiba has a lot of the similar properties of CBD oil in the way that it affects the human body. So I use it a lot for anxiety. If I'm having a very stressful day or I'm just really anxious and on edge, I will take a drop of Copaiba and a veggie cap, and it will help calm me down. So that's how I use Copaiba. I have used it in some diffuser blends, and I've used it topically. Aromatically diffusing it, it's, you usually want to have it blended with something in your diffuser because by itself, Copaiba is not really that pleasant. It sounds kind of weird, but I would compare it to the smell of a tomato, like when you're cutting a tomato. That's what it smells like to me. But maybe with a little bit of like a leather scent, I don't know. Definitely has like a tomato smell to me, which sounds a little odd, but that's what it reminds me of. One thing to keep in mind with essential oils, different people smell them different ways too. There's some oil blends where, like, if it's peppermint with something else, I will always smell the peppermint, no matter what. There's a blend from doTERRA called Past Tense. It's really good for if you have a lot of neck tension or you have a headache. It's really good for that. The thing that I find with that blend, it has peppermint. It might have spearmint too. I can't remember exactly. I don't have it with me. It has cilantro and a couple of other things in it. When I first put it on, I will smell the peppermint. After about 15 minutes, the only thing I can smell out of it is the cilantro. And that's all I will smell until I take a shower, wash it off. Other people that use Past Tense, they only smell the peppermint. They don't smell the cilantro at all. So I guess it's kind of like different foods where to some people, cilantro has like a soapy taste and other people don't notice that. It's kind of the same, I guess, just differences in the way that our senses pick those up. All right, so we've talked about the book that I recently finished called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. We have talked about the ABBCs. Now I want to talk about what you can do as far as mental health to keep yourself grounded when it comes to like activities or reflecting on what's going on around you, keeping you in the moment. One of the areas where I struggle a lot with mental health is with anxiety, especially social anxiety. One thing that I want to do about my anxiety, I do want to take active steps to, be able to cope with it better. I don't know that I'll ever be able to get rid of anxiety, but at least if I can learn how to cope better with it, I can implement some of those strategies. One thing that I have been doing, this is a book that I bought probably about a year ago. It's called the Anxiety Workbook, and it's a 7-week plan to overcome anxiety, stop worrying, and end panic. I bought it a long time ago, didn't really do a whole lot with it, but I've started doing the daily exercises again. What it does is it kind of helps you understand anxiety, what's going on in your brain and your body when anxiety attacks are happening, or if you just have generalized anxiety, why you're having that fight or flight response. So what it's doing is it breaks things down for you. It explains to you what's happening with your body and your mind when you're having anxiety, and how your brain is kind of tricking you into thinking that something is more serious than it is. And then it does go through, and it really is truly a workbook. It asks you questions and wants you to truly reflect on what's going on, how you're feeling, what your symptoms are, that sort of thing. For example, this question was asking me to think about a situation in which I experienced anxiety. Do you remember how you reacted? Were you confused or frightened by the feeling? Did you experience physical symptoms such as shaking or a racing heartbeat? Write down what you remember about the situation in the space below. Sort of similar, because I've gone to therapy before. These are similar to questions that a therapist would be asking you. Now, I'm not saying use this book as a replacement for therapy if you feel like you need therapy, but you can use this to supplement that, or you can use it until you're able to go and get help. So it really does a great job of breaking down what anxiety is and why it's happening in your body. I underlined this one statement from the book where it says, "Fear can help alert us to danger, but becomes anxiety when it is out of proportion to the situation." And that is so true, because you really do have the same reaction when you have an anxiety attack as you would have if something scary was happening to you. The only thing is, with anxiety, it's not a situation that really warrants you having that reaction. That's one thing that I'm doing. So I do recommend, if you're struggling with something right now, maybe it's depression from being isolated from people during the pandemic, or, if you just want to work on your people skills, find a book, especially something like a workbook where you can do a few activities every day and sort of work toward that goal. Find a book that works for you. The other book that I've been using, this is called Do One Thing Every Day That Inspires You. It's part journal and part activity book. So it has you do little activities. Some of them are writing, some are not. So this one was a drawing. It wanted me to randomly find something in a bag or a drawer and make a cubist drawing of it. There is another one here that is put ink on your index finger. Record these body rhythms with hard and soft impressions. So it has pulsing, breathing, blinking, digesting, and hiccuping. So this is just a fun little activity book. If I have 5 minutes, I'll go and do a little activity out of here. Kind of helps you forget about what's going on around you. The world is in chaos right now, what can we say? But it just gets your mind off of it for a little while. So those are a couple of ways that using books, you can help your mental health or keep yourself grounded, centered, and aligned. Hopefully, the book that I talked about today, these books that I've just finished talking about, and some of the essential oil knowledge that I've shared with you have been helpful. If you have a suggestion for a book you think I should read, or a topic that you think I should cover, where you want me to go out and find a book on a topic, I'm happy to do that. Just let me know what you want to see and hear. I really do want to thank you for joining me today. Stay safe, stay sane, stay you, and enjoy.